Maraming maingay. Naririnig ako. Wala na yung maingay. Iwan ko muna yun. Ito na ba yun? Wala na. Okay. Chapter 4 na tayo. No? Chapter 4, the parallels. Nabubulol tuloy ako. Between the two ages in the providence of restoration. So, ano ba yung kino-compare natin na parallels na in history? It is yung it is about the providence of restoration ng first coming of the Messiah sa first coming and in the second coming. So bakit natin siya inaaral? Naririnig ba ako? Naririnig ako?
Opo.
So why do we need to study the parallels? So, una, bakit natin inaaral sila? Katulad ba ito ng pag-aaral natin, katulad ng world history nung nasa school pa tayo? So, ang different, hindi lang natin inaaral siya, we're not trying to, hindi natin inuulit yung pag-aaral natin ng history when we are in the academe or we are, because ang inaral lang naman natin during sa school is yung chronology, di ba? Yung chronology of events. Ano ba nangyari, yung sunod-sunod na yon, tapos kaya nga ayaw ko ng history. Kasi kailangan kasi sa history kasi you need to, in the examination, you need to be very, yung bang, dapat correct yung dates. Kasi pag hindi ka correct yung dates mo, wrong answer mo, di ba? Nagkamali ka lang isang number doon, wrong na yung answer. So, yun. Ganun natin inaral yung history. Parang intellectual lang, sinunod-sunod na lang natin kung ano nangyari, anong ginawa ni ganito sa ganitong araw, ay sa ganitong date, ganun yung ginawa natin. But, dito kasi sa Divine Principle, we are trying to learn history, most especially yung parallels niya, kasi nga we are trying to understand the internal meaning of the events that have happened in history for the purpose of the providence of restoration. Pag sinabi natin kasing providence, pag sinasabi natin kasing providence, we know that this is the work of God into restoring restoring what was lost in the Garden of Eden, and that was the connection to humanity. Na disconnect yung the first ancestor sa humanity. And yung providence is initiated by God. At ang kailangan, just like sa creation, dapat sinusunod niya yung principles of creation. Kasi di ba naaral na natin sa previous lectures natin that restoration is equivalent to recreation. So kung ano yung principles na ginamit ni God during the time of creation, ito din yung i-apply niya into the restoration process. So ang nung nawala during the time of Adam and Eve is iyon yung gagawin niya. Kung paano niya prepare si Adam, the environment or the environment or the universe before creating Adam and Eve, ganun din niya gagawin yung restoration process. So ang nawala ni God during that is his sons and daughters or his sick children. So ang providence of restoration, i-restore niya si Adam and Eve dun sa original na positions nila, na yung sinless children before na nag-fall sila. Yun yung gagawin. So kailangan ng savior, somebody to stand at savior. At sino ba yung sa dalawa na yun yung kailangan mag-stand? Sa kay Adam and Eve yung mag-stand na savior. Kung sino yung sa dalawa yung kung sino sa dalawa yung mas kokonti yung mas kokonti yung mas less sinner, parang gano'n. Mas kokonti yung kanyang kasalanan. And that would be Adam. Kaya nga ang sa foundation for the Messiah, ang hinahanap is yung first is the second Adam. After na ma-restore si Satan, pag na-restore na si Satan as second Adam, and that's the time na kailangan na the second Adam and God, magtutulungan sila para ma-restore din si Eve. So, ganun yung So, lahat nung pinag-uusapan natin ng providence of restoration dito is finding the Messiah. At in the previous chapter, we have discussed kung yung prolongation of history na habang as God is trying His best to restore humanity into their original state, palaging nagkakaroon ng failure, and thus naproprolong yung history of restoration natin. And thus, habang naproprolong yung history natin, nagka-accumulate din yung responsibility of the central person. So, dahil sa prolongation na yon, para malaman natin yung pagdating ng, alam naman natin na dumating na yung Messiah, yung second Adam, 2,000 years ago. And then, kailangan natin malaman ngayon kung, syempre, na-prolong, syempre dahil hindi siya na-fulfill dahil ibig sabihin, because Jesus Christ was not accepted. So, na-prolong uli. So, kailangan malaman natin kung ano ang kailan uli darating yung Messiah. Nang sa ganon, kasi yun yung, ang gagawin na naman ni God, mag-prolong yung history at magagawin na naman ni God, i-prepare na naman niya yung mga tao to receive the Messiah. Nang sa ganon, pag-prepare niya yung mga tao, nang sa ganon, hindi na mangyari yung nangyari uli na hindi na-receive the Messiah was not accepted. So, yun yung ginagawa natin sa prolongation ng history so that hindi maulit yung history. Dapat yun yung responsibility ng humanity is to ready themselves, prepare themselves to receive the Messiah. Yun yung dapat. So, paano natin malalaman yun? Kailangan natin aralin yung history para malaman natin kung ano yung mga failures and successes, yung mga success of the previous history, nang sa ganon, yun yung maging foundation natin para maging matanggap na ng mga tao pagdating ng panahon na dyan na uli yung second coming. So, ang makikita natin sa history, so kailangan natin, alam naman natin na ang prepare, after prepare, there is a central nation prepared for that. That is the Israel, and that we need to study the history of Israel. At magsuzoom in tayo, we will be concentrating on the internal purpose kung bakit Israel. Parang ano yung mga nangyari doon. Yung mga ibang events tungkol doon, ang magsusumin lang tayo doon sa tungkol sa providence, doon sa work ni God na naka-zoom in dun sa three great blessings, of course. Kasi yung three great blessings, yun yung ano yun yung susundan talaga natin kasi yun yung ire-recreate, di ba? Yun yung susundan natin. Yun yung susundan natin. So we need to ito yung pag-aaralan natin sa parallels from first coming, second coming, and the second coming. So, since the ultimate purpose of providence, of restoration, is to lay the foundation for the Messiah, if it is prolonged, the dispensation to restore this foundation must be repeated. So, this has meant, in effect, the repetition of dispensation to restore through indemnity, symbolic offering, and substantial offering. So, i-repeat siya talaga. The nation centrally responsible for God's providence in the age of the providence of restoration, starting from Adam, was Israel. So, from Abraham was Israel. So, yung history ng Israel, alam naman natin na after na nagkasala si Adam and Eve, when they committed the original sin, they committed the fall, nagkaroon ng pag makita natin, maalala natin yung tawag dito. Pag maalala niyo yung yung three stage of growth, nandoon sila sa baba, di ba? Nasa baba yung from Abel to Abraham, restoration yun, providence of restoration yun. So nag-start nag-start lang yung providence of restoration from Abraham. So, and ang central ang central nation at that time is Israel. The Old Testament, which record the history, the Old of Israel, provides the source material for studying the providential history of that age. So, kailangan natin aralin, yung lahat ng kailangan nating aralin tungkol sa Israel that pertains to the providence of restoration is yung Old Testament. So, ang main natin doon is record na gagamitin. The central people who became centrally responsible for the providence in the age of prolongation of the providence of restoration. The central people who becomes centrally responsible for the providence of the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration is starting with Jesus were the Christians. So, accordingly, the history of Christianity provides the source material of understanding providential history in this age. So, in this sense, the descendants of Abraham of the Old Testament may be referred to as the first Israel, yung descendants ni Abraham. So mag-umpisa yon kay Isaac, then to Jacob hanggang dun sa mga yung 400 years na slavery sa Egypt. Yung lahat yon descendants ni Abraham. The Christians in the New Testament may be called the second Israel. So alam natin na because yung Israel, the Judaism, yung mga Jews kasi in the time of Jesus did not accept Jesus. So ang nag-assume ng responsibility of the Jews who did not tawag dito, who did not accept Jesus is the Christianity. Sila yung tumatayong second Israel. Kaya nga sinasabi dun sa Bible na hindi ibig sabi kung hindi ka descendant ni Adam, hindi ka na ni Abraham, hindi ka na taga-Israel. Hindi kailangan maging descendants ka ni Abraham. Kasi nga the Jews failed their responsibility to accept and receive Jesus Christ as the Messiah during that time. So napunta yung grace or yung blessing for which is supposedly for the Jews was transferred to the Christianity, which are hindi talaga sila direct na descendants of Abraham. The age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration has been to restore through substantial parallels the age of the providence of restoration. The age of the image parallel. Ito ako dun. As the periods of this age were to restore through indemnity the corresponding periods of the previous age, this period proceeded in a parallel fashion, both in order and in length, prolongation. So kung makikita nyo dito, pareho yung Egyptian slavery, yung Roman persecution, na ito yung prolongation of the providence of restoration para ma-prepare yung second coming, is yung which is the 400 years of Roman persecution, is pareho din yung years niya sa Egyptian slavery when dun sa mga descendants ni Abraham na naging slave sa Egypt, na 400 years din siya. In order for them to indemnify yung failure nga ni Abraham, at the same time, it is to prepare for the coming of the first Messiah, for Jesus Christ, di ba? Yun. So pareho siya. The 400-year period of persecution in the Roman Empire in the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration was the substantial parallel to the Israelites' 400-year period of slavery in Egypt. Its purpose was to restore the earlier period through parallel indemnity conditions. So, kaya nga, yung sabi natin kanina sa umpisa, kailangan kasi ma-indemnify. So, mag-uulit. Kaya siya nag-uulit dahil nga dun sa, kasi na-prolong. Because of the failure of the people the chosen people to accept and receive the Messiah. Likewise, the 400-year period of the regional church leadership was to restore the 400-year periods of the judges through parallel indemnity condition. Regional church parallel. Ganun din siya. So pareho din yung 400 years, yun yung period of the judges at saka yung regional leadership. Ito yung periods of the judges, ito yung 'di ba, after na ito yung panahon na wherein nakapasok na si Joshua at mga sa Israel, sa land of Canaan, 'di ba? Yun yung period of the judges. So 400 years 'yon na yung period noon. Katulad din siya, ito yung na kung saan yung period of the judges, ito yung pagkapasok kasi nila sa Canaan, di ba? Na-defeat nila yung 31 kingdoms altogether. Yung sabi dun sa last natin, 31 kingdoms altogether. Pagkatapos sila Joshua, parang pinaghati-hatian nila ngayon, yung pinarcelize nila yung land of Canaan, tapos pinaghati-hati nila by tribe parang ganyan, by tribe. So meron silang mga by tribe, merong tawag yun, merong pinuno doon, parang ganyan. And yun yung mga judges, and isa sa mga mga 15 judges lahat yun eh. Mababasa natin yun sa three-colored at saka sa 12 yata makikita nyo yung detalye nun. Dito kasi hindi naman pinakita talaga. So from ang mga pinakasikat na judges na during that time, mula nung pagpasok sa Canaan, nung from slavery sa Egypt, is yung sila Samson, yun mga yon, si Samuel, yun yung pinakalas na judges yung panahon na yon bago nagkaroon ng United Kingdom. Ganon din sa after Jesus Christ, after the death of Jesus Christ, after ng Roman persecution, nagkaroon ng church leadership din. Nakatulad ng mga judges, yung regional church leadership, yung tatlo yung yung ito yun yung mga yung tawag din, yung patriarch, bishop at saka mga abbots. So katulad din ng judges, sila yung nagiging king, judge, sila yung king, judge at saka sila din yung priest. Tatlo din yung kanilang yung responsibility ng mga judges is tatlo. Ganon din sa regional church leadership, yung mga patriarch, yung abbots at saka yung mga tawag doon, mga bishop. Ano din sila, kung ano yung responsibility ng mga judges, ganun din sa kanila, and pareho din yung length niya. Kaya siya parallel. And the 120 years of the Christian Empire was to restore the 120 years of United Kingdom through parallel indemnity condition. So ito yung from Saul. After kasi ng the judges, bago yung first coming, yung rule ng judges, si Samuel, siya yung namili ng namili sila ng king na. Parang nag-develop na sila, and then kailangan ng magkaroon ng king. So namili sila ng king, and ang namili ng king at saka by popularity yata, by popularity, namili sila ng king. Ang nag-umpisa doon si Saul, si David, and then sino yung Solomon? Yun. Si Solomon. Ito yung sinasabi niya. So, bawat isang king sa United Kingdom, tig for 40 years sila. 40 years yung reign nila. So, ganun din, after na nagkaroon nagkaroon dito sa regional church leadership, katulad din sa mga judges kasi, naging sila, na-misuse nila yung kanilang mga na-misuse nila yung kanilang powers. So ganun din. So they need to establish na kingdom. So yun yung sa panahon na ni Charlemagne. Nag-start yun sa Charlemagne. So 120 years din yan. So mga kingdom, empire nga to dito, kingdom. The 400-year period of the divided kingdoms of the East and West was to restore the 400-year period of the divided kingdoms of North and South through parallel conditions. So, after nung sa United Kingdom, nag-divide sila, 'di ba? Nag-divide yung Israel into North and South. So, nagkanya-kanya sila. So ganun din sa ano, ganun din sa ganun din sa preparation for the second coming, ganun din siya. Nagkaroon din ng divided kingdom of East and West. Kasi uh, yung Christianity dito sa East parang naging ano siya, naging corrupt siya tapos napunta ngayon sila sa western part. Ito yung eastern part ng divided kingdom sa history ng Christianity. Ito yung nandoon sa Roman Empire side. Whereas ito yun yung sa west, dito yung sa Europe to, yun dun sa wherein yung mga German, mga German, yung nag-preserve nung sa tawag dito, yung sanctity of yung purpose yung ng restoration yun. So the 200-year period of papal exile and return was to restore the 200-year period of Israel's exile to Babylon and return through the parallel indemnity condition. Ganun din siya. So kung sa first preparation for the first coming, nagkaroon ng 10 year na Israel exile and return, ganun din sa preparation for the second coming. Nagkaroon din ng papal exile and return. Ito yung nag-agawan yung sa history ng Christianity, especially centering on Roman Catholicism, nag-agawan sila yung seal ng Pope, yung ganon. yung parang kinapture nila yung Pope, 'di ba? Tapos pinalayas nila, tapos yung ganun na history. Following Following the period of Israel's exile and return, another 400 years elapsed before Jesus came. So, ito na yon. This was the period of preparation for the advent of the Messiah. Likewise, Christianity is to meet Christ at the second advent only after passing through 400 years of period of preparation for second advent of the Messiah, which had followed the period of papal exile and return. So, ito yung dito na lumabas uli yung in the preparation of in the 400 years bago dumating talaga si Jesus, dito dumating yung mga prophets, and ang pinakasikat nga dito si Malakay, dito rin yung lumabas si Elijah dito sa ano na to. And then ganun din sa second coming, starting from Martin Luther, yun, nung nagkaroon ng kung mababasa nyo, si Martin Luther is priest siya na in-excommunicate. Kaya gusto lang niya kasi magkaroon sana ng unity among dun sa Roman Christian Kaso in-excommunicate siya, pinaltalsik siya, yung ganyan, maraming naawa sa kanya, dun sa cause niya, kaya yon, yun yung umpisa excuse me, sandali na nga. Yes, boss. Opo. Kukunin ko na lang po dun sa baba, boss. Yes, boss. 47 saka 17, boss. Dalawa siya. Papadeposit ko lang namin kay Carlo tomorrow, boss. Tapos, papadeposit. Okay lang, boss, kasi deposit lang naman, di ba? kailangan namin po yung account number niyo, boss. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Text na lang po. Okay. Okay. Car. Car. Sorry po, nasa office kasi ako. Tuloy natin. Following the period of Israel's exile and return, another 400 years elapsed before Jesus came. This was the period of preparation for the advent of the Messiah. So, ito yun. Likewise, Christianity is to meet the second advent. So, ganun din. Pareho lang siya kasi parallel siya para nang sa ganun, bakit kaya okay. Why is it na parallel siya? Para, di ba sinasabi kasi, why is it na parallel yung mga pangyayari? Pati in Lent, di ba? The first coming at saka second coming. Nang sa dapat natin maintindihan na naging parallel sa para to lumalabas ito yung secret nung restoration period ni God. Actually, nakikep lang siya in secret kasi nga kasi ayaw ni Satan na malaman natin yon. Pero sa totoo lang, we need to know nang sa ganon, we will know hindi naman kung ano yung exact na date ng pagdating ng Messiah para in order to be able to recognize the Messiah. Nang sa ganon, whatever happens, whatever na failures na natin na nagawa noon is that maayos na natin para hindi na mag-prolong yung Providence. Katulad nung sinasabi natin na yung katulad kahapon, sa Rally of Hope, sa speech ni Mother, dun sa message ni Mother, sa totoo lang, medyo habang inaaral ko kasi itong chapter 4 natin, parang kinikilabutan ako. Kinikilabutan ako. Kasi yung palaging naisip ko kasi, palaging sinasabi ni Mother, since May 18, May 8, nung sinabi niya yung, although even before naman yata sinasabi niya na heaven cannot wait anymore. Parang ganyan, sinasabi niya. Parang for me, parang nag-sync lang sa akin yung kahapon, ay yung sinasabi niya na heaven cannot wait anymore. So, why, kung heaven cannot wait anymore, parang grabe, pag hindi mo ginawa yung responsibility mo ngayon, ano mangyayari? Parang nakakatakot. Parang natatakot ako. Anong mangyayari? What will happen? Pero pag iniisip ko nga, when John the Baptist failed his mission, ano nangyari sa kanya, di ba? God cannot protect him anymore. So, parang namatay siya sa walang kabuluhan na pagkamatay. Yun yung ganon. So, yun yung nakakatakot sa chosen people. The chosen people. If we truly believe as unificationists, we truly believe as we are representing the chosen people because Christianity did not do their job, di ba? They did not do their responsibility. And we don't do our responsibilities as well, di ba? And anong mangyayari sa atin? Parang gano'n. Palagi sinasabi ni Mother. And then sinasabi niya, kahapon sinasabi niya ni Mother about about the about China and sinasabi ko na to dun sa second batch China and America. Parang binibigyan niya na itong China and America. Parang binibigyan niya ng last chance, 'di ba? Mother is telling na China and America, ito yung gagawin nyo. Ito yung gawin nyo para maabsuelto kayo sa lahat ng kasalanan nyo. So, gumawa kayo ng mabuti, do your responsibility. If you do this, baka mapatawad pa kayo. Parang ganon. Kasi sinasabi niya yung pinakamalaki, yung desert, Gobi Desert, sabi niya, Gobi Desert, gawin siyang forest. So, yun yung sinasabi niya. Nang sa ganon, para makabawi naman ng China sa mga kasalanan niya sa humanity, di ba? Parang ganon. And then, ang Amerika din, sinasabi din niya na you should return yung kung paano yung Puritan paano nagumpisa yung Amerika, yung Puritan days, wherein sila kasi yun yung mission ng yun yung mission ng Amerika na yun yung responsibility niya, 'di ba? As siya yung central nation sa mundo, parang ganyan. Pag sinabi natin America, parang nare-reach out mo lahat through the US, ma-reach out mo lahat yung sa mundo. So yung Puritan spirit, yun ang sabi niya, dapat bumalik siya at gawin niya yung responsibility niya. So parang sinasabi ni Mother, para sa akin, ang dating kasi sa akin, true Mother is giving China and America their last chance to redeem themselves, kung ano man yung to redeem themselves and do their responsibility. And in the same manner, pag as members of the unification movement, gagawin din natin dapat, especially in this second 7-year course, uh, towards 2027, yung responsibility natin. If not, nakakatakot. Natatakot ko anong mangyayari sa atin. Yun yung and that, I would like to end with that. Sa chapter 4, section 1 to 6. And I will pass on section 7 to Sir Herwin.
Got it. Give your hand, brothers and sisters. So I think let's begin the next section.
Super haba niyan.
Ano yung mahaba eh? Hindi ko mahaba eh.
Hindi mapam. Paiksin talaga. Gagawing 1 hour lang.
Sa'yo yung mahaba yan. Parallelism. Pero sa, ano kasi, 3 hours ka din. 10 hours kasi ang haba eh. Okay, so let's welcome myself. Thank you. So, kunin kami sarili ko. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, MC, for the introduction, welcoming me. So, continuation from the chapter 4 of Adelina's the 7, the Providence of Restoration and the Progress of Peace. Topic na pag-aralan natin throughout Adelina's lecture, parallelism of history. That's how the history is being repeated the same manner because of the failure of the central figure before. And yeah, we could see about the Providence, the foundation for the Providence, and Providence of Restoration, and the prolongation of the Providence of Restoration. And here in section 7, pag-usapan natin yung history, kung paano nag-progress yung history in line with the Providence of Restoration. Yes, historians can understand also how does the story progress, the history of human beings progress. Behind this, we have this tinatawag na internal side, the Providence of Restoration. How God works behind this story, the history of human beings, to restore us, to restore the world. So, malalaman natin dito. This is based on economics, religion, and politics. So, human history. Meanwhile, on the basis of this relationship of blood ties with the first human beings, Satan has worked through the fallen people to realize in God in advance of God, a perverted form of the ideal society which God intends to realize. As a result, in human history, we witness the rise of unprincipled society which are built upon twisted versions of the principle. So, a person can change the world, but what kind of world? Anong klaseng mundo? Kasi, after the fall, may tinatawag na tayong fallen people. Yung fallen people, so yun nga, sinasabi natin that we have two minds. Evil mind, saka original mind. Wherein, nagko-confuse yung thinking ng tao. Ang perfect person, if Adam and Eve did not fail, perfect person is one mind lang siya, original mind. And ang goal niya is only goodness, to give joy to God, and to establish, to achieve the three-great blessing, the purpose of creation, and is to build the kingdom of heaven and earth. Yan ang goal, isang mind lang yung perfected person. Ang problema, since we are fallen people, from the time of Adam and Eve, we have two minds, yung sinasabi ko nga. Ibig sabihin, we can change the world, but what kind of world? An evil world or a world of goodness? Alin sa dalawa? Yun ang problema. Yun ang naging problema. So at the end of human history, before God can restore kingdom of heaven and earth, Satan will have built an unprincipled world in a distorted image of the kingdom. Is none other than the communist world. So yun, makikita natin sa environment that parang may dalawang mundo ang nangyayari. Nga, we have this democratic world, to be exact, in the communist world, communism, wherein these two worlds are fighting each other. And so it means like when God is trying to make an ideal society, to build kingdom of heaven and earth, to receive the Messiah, so Satan also is doing the other way around, the unprincipled society, the communism. So this is what happened in our world today. That there are two worlds we have now is because we were fallen. And so what would be the progress of history in line with the age of the providence of restoration? Let's see. The progress of history in the age of the providence of restoration. So this is time during providence of restoration. When we examine the course of social development guided by Satan, we find that clan societies arose out of the divisions between individuals in primitive societies. These societies have tended to expand in the scope, with clan societies developing into feudal societies and then into monarchic societies by increasing their territory and power. Satan preempted this pattern ahead of God because he understood God's plan to call individuals and have them build such societies. So this is how the social the environment developed that time. But this one it was guided by Satan is because we fall. So God called Abraham to be the standard bearer of goodness and blessed him with descendants who would uphold God's will. God raised up Abraham's descendants into the first Israelite clan. They entered Egypt as a clan society, but by the time they left Egypt for Canaan, they had grown into a tribal society. Israelite society in the period of the Judges was a feudalistic society. Then they entered a monarchic society with the establishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. So, in the beginning, it started with primitive society. The time of Abraham, and where primitive societies where they shared their possessions with each other. But in what it was only a defective imitation na ginaya lang to ni Satan from uh, God's goal of a society. But it never happens na they are sharing their possessions with each other, but they were fallen. So it is impossible for them to unite with each other. So nag-cause niya is conflict. And from the primitive society, nag-develop siya ng clan societies. Then, yes, yung Abraham descendants developed into clan societies, wherein, but before, next to feudalistic societies. So, feudalistic society, like, parang about land. Yes. This was the period of Judges. The main reason that a clan society develops into a feudalistic society is to bring property, yung mga materials or lands, or to bring the property and people back to God's side. So by expanding the territory under God's sovereignty, it is a foundation to build an ideal society for God. So there's an expansion, and through this feudalistic, kasi pag makuha mo yung land, makuha mo rin yung tao doon nakatira, and it is to bring this property and people back to God's side, from Satan to return to God's side. And then from the feudalistic, develop into monarchic society. So monarchic society, like, they have a strong economic society and well defended sovereignty also. Meron silang ganun. And this one, the United Kingdom arose and was founded by King Saul, the first king of the United Kingdom. Then next naging king is David, then King Solomon. So it is like another foundation to receive the Messiah as king. Kaya dapat magkaroon ng monarchic societies. Just to receive the Messiah to rule as a king of kings in a worldwide foundation. Worldwide foundation or worldwide dominion. But unfortunately, ang nangyayari kasi is King Solomon, he was the last king of this United Kingdom, fell into idolatry. So, bisimba siya ng mga Diyos-Diyosan. So God had to dismantle this monarchic society. Kailangang itigil ni God ng ganito kasi they're praying in these idols. So God has to find another way para ma-prepare niya yung everything here is the foundation to receive the Messiah. We should understand this one. So God has to find another way. So nangyayari is he placed Israel in the Hellenistic cultural sphere. So yung Hellenistic cultural sphere, yun yung ancient Greek customs, art, language, way of living, na ang mga Israelites is kailangang ma-inherit nila yung Hellenism cultural sphere. Na ito yung ideological framework ng democracy. Ito yung dahilan or root ng democracy through this Hellenistic cultural sphere para ma-prepare yung Messiah and ma-prepare yung Messiah then ruled as King of Kings. So ito yung purpose dapat. But what happens, yun nga, there are some failures of King Solomon. It was never happened. So how about the progress of history in the age of the prolongation of providence and restoration? Kanina ang pinag-aralan natin is the age of the providence of restoration. Now, prolongation, the providence of restoration. And this time, the age of Jesus Christ and until the second coming. Yung kanina, it was the time of Abraham until Jesus. And now here, Jesus, the new or the second advent. Preparation to receive the second. So yung sinabi natin rin na kanina, na-repeat yung history and their parallel. And ang i-explain ko dito is how this history of this prolongation of providence of restoration progresses. So here, since sinabi ko kanina that God preparing for an environment that could welcome the Messiah, so that's why he brought Israelites to have this Hellenistic culture to receive the Messiah. But the problem is when Jesus came, did not believe Jesus Christ. They even crucified him. Yun ang problema. So the providence of restoration and the history of the West. Here, had the Jewish people believed in Jesus as the Messiah and united with him, the Roman Empire, which had unified the ancient world around the Mediterranean Sea, would have been won over by Jesus during his lifetime. Jesus would have been honored throughout the empire as the King of Kings and established a worldwide dominion with Jerusalem as its capital. Suppose ito yung mangyayari yung nasa diagram. Na if Jerusalem welcome Jesus, believe Jesus Christ, then they will become the center of the history and become the center of Rome also. It will be developed throughout the world. Ganun ang mangyayari. But because of that failure, the crucifixion of Jesus. So, however, since Jesus was crucified, the Western Roman Empire came to an end in 476 AD. And the center of God's providence of restoration shifted from Judea, the land of God's bitter grief, to Western Europe, formerly the territory of the Western Roman Empire. Accordingly, the spiritual providence of restoration based on Christianity has been conducted primarily in Western Europe. Only in Western Europe has the history of this era progressed strictly according to the pattern set by the providence restoration. So because of that failure, Judea ano siya, sinira ni God yung Judea is because they supposed to welcome Jesus Christ. But what happened yun nga sa story ng Bible that the Israelite people was has been spread to the different parts of the world. They did not fulfill their personal responsibility. If they did, they are in one siguro. Magkaisa sana sila nun. Still, they are intact in Israel, supposed to be in Judea. But it never happens. So, sinira ni God ang Judea, and then, nagkaroon din ng katapusan yung empire ng Romans, Roman Empire, Western Roman Empire. So, ang nangyayari is napunta sa Western Europe yung Providence. Another Providence na sinet ni God in order to continue the providence of laying the foundation to receive the Messiah. So, kaya, so the history of Christianity in Western Europe provides us with information about the events which shaped the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration. Kaya most of the translation of our words actually, or in the Bible, sinasabi na from the Latin word, from the Greek word, mga ganon. It's because the providence shifted from there, from Roman Empire to Western Europe. Kaya most of these words were from the Latin word or Greek word. Kaya yun ang dahilan. Kasi ang history na punta sa Western Europe. Kasi nag-failed yung Roman Empire. So next, yun na. So the mutual relations between religious history, economic history, and the political history. So since the prolongation of the providence of restoration started here in Europe, and let's study, investigate how it was developed. And this is based on religion, politics, and economy. So, although religion and economy seem to develop at variance with each other, they are related into the life of society. Thus, there has been some mutual influence between the history of Christianity and economic history. Religion and economy are integrated with our life in society through politics. Therefore, to accurately grasp the progress of history as it moves toward the goal of the providence of restoration, you must investigate separately the Christian, economic, and political histories. So let's study this one about the religion, and they are supposed to be one, but the problem is, they've always they were not able to combine all these things. And even here we have this politics that they integrated both religion and economy. So let's study how. So we are now here in the prolongation of the providence of restoration. How at this time the history progresses. So based on clan, so ulitin natin yung parang about sa clan, feudalism, gano'n. Yung nangyari, yung diniscuss ko kanina about sa providence of restoration. So gagawin natin dito sa prolongation of the providence of restoration. But this is in a different manner, like prolongation nga. So with the crucifixion of Jesus, the Jewish nation had fallen to Satan's side. Consequently, God broke up that society, calling devout believers out of it to establish a Christian clan society. But Christian, so nagkaroon ng clan yung Christian. We have Christian clan society. Since the Jewish nation had fallen to Satan's side because of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, so God broke up that society. So tinawag ni God yung mga mga believers in Jesus Christ. And that time, konti pa lang, actually, ang dati is, ang Christian is cult. Cult pa yung Christian. Kasi only few people believe in Jesus Christ at that time. And Romans verse, yeah, really angry with the Jews. So God called these devout believers and they established the Christian clan society. But the problem is like the Christian clan society was composed of rudimentary communities. Ibig sabihin mga simpleng tao lang na sa clan na to, yung bilong sa clan sa Christian clan society na to. Simpleng tao lang. So which means they don't have a structured political and economic system. Wala silang ganung structural pattern proper. Kasi hindi nga sila, wala nga silang knowledge, mga ganun. Hindi nga sila mga pinag-aralan ba, mga ganun. They are not high priest, mga ganun. So in this period, religion, politics, and economics didn't progress still in the clan. So, but despite severe persecution, Christian clan society gradually prospered in the Roman Empire and developed into a Christian tribal society. So, nag-develop siya kahit na maraming persecution that time, the Christian clan society still moved forward and they developed this tribal society. And Christian society expanded greatly as Christianity was brought to the Germanic peoples, who migrated into this territory in the latter half of the 4th century. And then this time, Christianity was being brought to Germans. The Western Europe na yung sinabi na kanina. And how about in nangyari sa clan society? How about the feudalistic society? So sa clan society, di ba, still not developed. It's because the people still are like mga simpleng tao lang. But in feudalistic society, let's study how the religion or politics and economy developed and the history. So a feudalistic society was born in Europe when around the fall of the Roman Empire. Imperial authority waned and the empire sank into chaos. So nag-start yung feudalistic society sa Europe. So since nag-fall yung Roman Empire, then the fall of this time, ito yung fall of yung Roman Empire. Ito yung fall of Carolingian Empire. Na ibig sabihin, the land was divided into a manor system, ruled by feudal lords. This time, so God raised a feudalistic society among the newly Christianized Germanic peoples, from whom he had chosen to lead the Providence, by strengthening small units under godly sovereignty in the spheres of religious, political, and economic life. God laid the groundwork to establish a godly kingdom. Kung ang ibig sabihin, yun, sinabi ko kanina, ang ibig sabihin ng feudalism is, this is about land. That time, land is important. Parang ito yung dahilan kung malaki yung land mo, malakas yung power mo. This was the time of the fall of Carolingian Empire nga, sabi ko. And the king, may king sila that time, but the king had a limited power than the feudal lords. Kasi parang ang mga feudal lords, sila yung may mas malaki yung lupa that time. Wala talagang masyadong power yung king. So nangyayari, mas lumakas yung power ng feudal lords kaysa sa king. So ibig sabihin, since they are talking about land here, yung politics tsaka economic and religion, nag-develop siya but separately. Kasi wala ngang absolute like one na kung saan mag-rule ng both both of these three, like politics, economics, and religion, mag-rule sa kanila. So it was this politics, economic, and religion develop pero separately siya. Hindi siya nagkaisa. So with respect to religion, it may be termed like feudalistic Christianity ang tawag. Then kung this was around in the midst of 5th century to 17th century, yung feudalistic Christianity. So this time also sa feudalistic Christianity, nag-arise yung Pope, Patriarchs, Bishop, Archbishop, so in the midst of 5th to 17th century. And assumes the position of also the feudal lords. Parang ganun yung position nila that time. Parang mga feudal lords sila. Kasi, I think they have also this sovereignty also. Big sovereignty. And yun yung feudalism. Nag-develop ang but separately, yung religion, economic, and political. But how sa monarchic society and imperialism? So, the kingdom built by Germanic people in Western Europe, hindi siya nag-flourish except sa Kingdom of France, yung mga Frankish. So the Frankish kings, ang nangyayari is since ang Providence is napunta sa Western Europe and the German people were the chosen that would lead the history. So yung Frankish people, they received Christianity. Kaya nagkaroon ng German tsaka Roman civilization or union between Romans and Germans. And the time of meron silang this time Merovingian dynasty. Pero hindi nag-flourish din. And then nag-flourish yung Carolingian dynasty. Yung sinabi ko kanina, but this one is the dynasty really ruled by King Pippin. Ito yung Pippin, yung father ni Charlemagne or the Charles the Great. So Charlemagne made Saint Augustine's vision of a Christian kingdom. Yung monarchic system. May vision si Saint Augustine na dapat magkaroon ng Christian kingdom. Ito yung ginawa ni Charlemagne. So ginawa niya is unite niya yung Western saka Central Europe. So in the sphere of religion, monarchic Christianity was a spiritual kingdom which transcended national borders. It was established under the rule of the papacy upon the spiritual foundation for the Messiah. So we are talking about here the monarch. So it is the world foundation, worldwide dominion. So ang tawag yan, spiritual kingdom. They have kingdom but spiritual. In the politics sphere, absolute monarchies flourished from the 17th century until the French Revolution in 1789. Yung absolute monarchy, ibig sabihin yan, the king has absolute power. Na kung ano yung gusto ng king, yan ang gagawin talaga ng under sa kanya. Walang makakasagabal. Ganun. Then, it was under the French Revolution in 1789. And when we talk about French Revolution, this was the time of the Industrial Revolution where the material things developed siya. And in the progress of economic history, feudalism was followed by capitalism, which was accompanied by the age of colonial expansion. So, developed yung economic capitalism since it was the time of the Industrial Revolution. And nagkaroon din ng colonial expansion. So, yan yung yung mas lumaki yung nag-expand yung Christianity this time, and everything, also the policies and economy. So this was the like 17th. The monarchy is from the midst of 17th century to 18th century, and colonial expansion midst of 19th century to 20th century. Spiritual kingdom started from 9th century to 16th century. Then how about, so from the monarchy society or imperialism, the democracy also brought about. So since the monarchic society failed God-given mission, hindi kasi na-fulfill yung, they are still, they have this progress in history, but they still never succeed their God-given mission. So the democratic movement gave rise like to England and America and France. So that is why during the 16th to 17th century, Christianity was introduced by the Europeans to American people. Doon na pumunta yung mga European people to America. So God began a process that would eventually tear down monarchic societies and raise up democracies in their place in order to rebuild a sovereign nation fit to receive the Messiah. So from the monarchic society, God raised up democracy. And we knew already that democracy is like the power of the people. Yung voice of the people is like, yun yung mas inuuna than the people of than the people ruling the government. So yes, also so nabanggit ko kanina that also this time 16th century and 17th century Christianity was being introduced in America. Actually nung experience ko sa America that time, na may na-meet ako mga Native Americans eh. Yung mga mukha ng Native Americans, iba siya sa mga Americans doon. ibang mukha nila eh. Native talaga. I mean, kasi sabi nila kasi, nakakausap ko sila. And even now, may ano kasi sila, may conflict with kung sino yung may-ari ng lupa na to, ganun. Kami yung may-ari ng. Even now actually, meron pa rin mga struggles of this land. Kasi sabi ng mga Native Americans that we are the owner of America. Kami yung nauna dito. And that's true actually, sila yung nauna, America. But dumating lang yung mga taga-Europe and then kinongkor yung America. So, but that actually, so that is actually a providential. Yung pumunta yung mga Europe doon, ay yung mga Europeans doon sa America is because that's a providence of God. That America is preparing, God is preparing a place, an ideal society, which is America. That's why pinapunta yung mga European doon to build Christianity. And that's how America flourished that time. And kahit nga, nung experience ko sa America, if I will go fundraising, I will do fundraising there. Ang laki ng church nila actually. Ang dalawa lang yung malaki nila eh. Na church tsaka simbahan nila tsaka school. Ang lalaki talaga, promise. Parang university na sa atin, sa kanila doon, ano pa lang, college. Parang ganun. Crazy. Anyway, this was the reason why America flourished. It's because of God dwells in America, and it's because that the European people was being prepared by God to establish Christianity, to flourish Christianity, and to spread all over the world. So in political sphere, the democratic movement, which rose in the late 18th century, gave rise to the revolution in England, America, France, and gave birth to today's democratic society. Ito yung dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng democracy is because of these revolutions in England and America. So the progress of history in the religious sphere moved to the stage of democratic Christianity after monarchic Christianity was shattered by Protestant Reformation of 1517. So Protestant Reformation, maalala talaga natin dito si Martin Luther, wherein Martin Luther is a professor of theology and also a priest. He rejected the teachings and practice of the Roman Catholic Church about indulgence or punishment if pagkasala yung tao. Actually, punishment is good, but yun nga lang is na misuse nila yung teachings na to, yung practice na to about indulgence. And they even they even suppress the freedom of that person. Ganun nangyari. So Martin Luther have this nag-protest siya, kaya Protestant Reformation. This is to reform the teachings of Roman Catholic. But Roman Catholic didn't follow what Martin Luther is saying, or so kaya yun, we have this many Protestant right now, and even America. Ang dami actually mga Protestant. And so with the progress of economic history, socialist ideas arose which undermined imperialism and fostered a democratic form of economy. So sa economy din, economic history, karon din ng democratic form of economy. Nagpa-follow lang yan siya. So that is the democracy and socialism. Then so let's go forward. And God desired to provide pleasant environment and living conditions equally to all his children. At the consummation of providential history, when this ideal can actually be realized, human beings will inevitably pursue a socialistic ideal. So ito talaga yung gusto ni God. Ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values versus communism. Kaya ito yung theme ng di ba? Kaya sinabi ko kanina, connected yung lecture natin ngayon Rally Walk yesterday. Ito yung theme natin. That the ideals of independence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. Ang gusto talaga ni God is socialistic ideal society where God can dwell and the Messiah will be received smoothly, and we will accept the Messiah. Ito yung gusto ni God, a pleasant environment for all. But yun nga, study more. In seeking for a socialistic society on God's side, people's original mind has drawn them to the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal shared values. The world in which these ideals will finally be realized is none other than the kingdom of heaven on earth, under the leadership of the returning Christ. So yun, it is to have ang goal ni God is to have the socialistic ideal with the through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. That we should have this shared values, common goals, even though we have different religions, but let's focus on what is our common objectives. Now it's better to focus more on loving one another than focusing on those differences that divides in our as children of God, as one family. So And the goal of this one is simply just establish peaceful world, a kingdom of heaven here on earth. Yan yung gusto ni God. But yes, always has the problem is because of we were fallen, and we have these two minds, kasi sinasabi ko nga kanina, we have these two minds, and people have this portion of responsibility whether what to choose. So, lumabas yung communism. Since Satan mimics God's providence in advance, the Satanic side advocates scientific socialism based on the theories of dialectical and historical materialism and has built the communist world. When we talk about communism, the father of communism, always Karl Marx. Ito siya yung pinakasikat na mga nag-aaral ng historya. Pinakasikat na tao, Karl Marx. Who started the dialectical materialism. So this is the Satanic side nangyayari. If God is working, also Satan is working. That's a problem. Fusion of religious, political, and economic histories. For the paths of religion, politics, and economy to converge and realize God's ideal, a new expression of truth must emerge which can completely integrate religion and science. The religion founded upon this truth will lead all of humanity to become one with God in heart. Such people will build an economy in accordance with the divine ideal, providing the foundation for a new political order to realize the ideal of creation. This will be the messianic kingdom built on the principle of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So yun, there should be a new expression of truth that should unite this religion, economy, and politics. Kasi nung napag-aralan natin kanina about progress of history from the providence of restoration until the prolongation of the providence of restoration, ang economy, religion, and politics, hindi talaga siya nagkaisa. From the beginning nga, hindi siya na-develop. Develop siya pagdating sa feudalism at monarchic system. Problem is they are separate. They are separated. So ang goal ng new truth, new expression of truth is to unite this religion, economy, and politics. Para isa lang yung magli-lead and become our model to live in unity, in peace, wherein through religion we can understand God and we can be able to understand the purpose of our life. And economy, in how we are going to take good care our environment, yung sinasabi ni Mother, that we are preparing this for the next generation. That is the goal of the new expression of truth. It is not to divide, but it is to unite. And how about the politics? The politics is to realize an ideal creation where there is a specific and systematized way of system that we could follow, or principles that we could follow to live in an ideal way. So yun yung messianic kingdom dapat gagawin. And that is through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So, kung ipa-follow natin itong tatlong to, mangyayari talaga that the kingdom of heaven will come on earth, will establish on earth, as long as we will follow. But it is very important that we have to understand and we have to know the new expression of truth. Ano ba itong new expression of truth na to? That it could unite everyone, every heads of state, everybody, without exemption. Total salvation, nasabi ni Dr. Yo. Ano yung new expression? Ito yung, which is very important because studying this principle, this new expression of truth, is we'll be able to realize something and think in a different way than before. Having this hope magkakaroon tayo ng hope sa sarili natin. It's because of this new expression. So I hope that you understood, and I would like to say thank you and good afternoon.